Snobby shooters mock a simple woman at the shooting range, but her single shot silences everyone. Mary woke up that morning feeling a little nervous but excited. She had planned to visit the local shooting range for the first time in a while. She wasn't a professional or someone who showed off, but shooting had always been something she enjoyed quietly. It helped her feel calm and focused. Today, she wanted to practice and maybe improve a little. Mary lived in a small town, where everyone knew each other. People often thought of her as a simple woman. She didn't dress fancy or speak loudly. She worked as a librarian, and she loved books and quiet places. But there was another side to Mary, one that very few people saw. She had learned to shoot from her father many years ago. He had taught her how to respect the gun and to always be careful. Since then, Mary practiced whenever she had the chance, but always quietly, never boasting or showing off. That morning, Mary put on her plain blue jeans and a comfortable shirt. She packed her small bag carefully. Inside, she had her old, trusted handgun, a pair of ear protectors, some safety glasses, and a few targets she wanted to use. She didn't need anything fancy. Her gun was a little worn but worked perfectly. She didn't care about having the newest or most expensive equipment. For her, shooting was about skill and focus, not the gear. When Mary arrived at the shooting range, it was busier than she expected. The place was outdoors, with several shooting lanes lined up side by side. She saw people of all ages and styles. Some wore simple clothes like her, but others looked very serious. A few wore expensive gear, and their guns looked shiny and new. They spoke loudly, laughing and joking with each other. Mary quietly walked to one of the empty lanes, set down her bag, and began preparing. As she did this, she noticed a small group nearby. There were 4 or 5 people, all men, dressed in brand-name shooting jackets and hats. Their guns looked big and very new. They were talking in loud voices and clearly noticed Mary. One of the men looked her up and down and laughed softly, then whispered something to the others. Mary could hear bits of their conversation, though they tried to keep it quiet. "Look at her," one said with a smirk. "Bringing that old thing? She must be joking." Another laughed. "Yeah, bet she doesn't even know how to use it properly." Mary felt a small wave of discomfort. She had been to the range before and knew this kind of attitude existed. But she didn't want to get upset or angry. She reminded herself that shooting was about patience and calm, not about proving something to others. She took a deep breath and focused on what she came to do: practice and enjoy the quiet moment. The Snobby group continued to watch her. They whispered and joked among themselves, clearly thinking she was an easy target for their teasing. One of them, a tall man with a confident smile, walked over and said loudly, "Hey there, are you sure you want to use that? We've got some real shooters here with better guns and skills." His tone was mocking but polite enough to be a challenge. Mary looked up at him, calm but steady. She smiled gently and replied, "I'm here to learn and practice. That's all." The man laughed again. "Well, good luck with that. You might want to watch and learn from us first." He motioned to his friends, who nodded and smirked. Mary didn't say anything more. She just put on her ear protectors and safety glasses, picked up her gun, and prepared her first target. The others continued to talk loudly, occasionally throwing in remarks like, "Let's see if she even hits the target," or "maybe she should stick to books, not guns." At first, Mary felt a little pressure. It's not easy to concentrate when people are mocking you. But she closed her eyes for a moment, took a slow, deep breath, and reminded herself why she loved shooting. It wasn't about impressing others. It was about focus, control, and being in the moment. Slowly, the noise around her seemed to fade. She placed her target carefully, checked her stance, and held her gun with both hands. Her fingers felt steady, and her mind was clear. The sunlight warmed her face, and a soft breeze rustled the trees around the range. It was peaceful, except for the distant sounds of laughter and talking from the snobby shooters. Mary thought about her father. He had always told her, "Never rush. Take your time. A good shot comes from calmness and respect." She smiled to herself and felt a little stronger. She was ready. While she prepared, she noticed one of the men from the snobby group watching closely. He seemed surprised that she wasn't getting nervous or upset. Maybe he hadn't expected that. She didn't care about their opinions, but she could see they were starting to pay attention to her. Mary pulled out one of her rounds carefully, loaded her gun, and aimed at the target. The rest of the people at the range seemed to stop and watch too. Even some who were busy with their own shooting looked her way. Her finger pressed the trigger, and the shot rang out sharply. The sharp sound of Mary's shot echoed through the shooting range. Everyone turned their heads, including the snobby group who had been watching her with amusement. The bullet hit the target close to the center, but not perfect. Mary took a small breath and smiled quietly to herself. She knew she had room to improve, but she was happy with her first shot. The snobby shooters exchanged looks, some raising their eyebrows in surprise. One of the men, who had been the most vocal about mocking Mary, stepped forward with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Not bad for a beginner," he said, though his tone still carried a hint of sarcasm. Mary didn't respond. She kept her focus and prepared for her next shot. She adjusted her stance, steadied her hands, and loaded another bullet. The group continued to talk quietly among themselves, making comments just loud enough for Mary to hear. "Look at her, still trying with that old gun. I bet she's never even been to a real competition," one said. Another laughed softly, "Maybe she just likes to waste time." Mary felt a small pang of annoyance but quickly pushed it aside. She didn't want to let their words distract her. Instead, she reminded herself why she was there: to practice and improve, not to impress anyone. As she aimed at the target, Mary thought about all the times she had practiced alone, in quiet places where no one watched or judged her. She remembered the patience it took to learn how to control her breathing, to steady her hands, and to focus on the tiny bullseye. She had spent many afternoons at home with her father, learning how to respect the gun and how to stay calm under pressure. That memory gave her strength. The snobby group was still watching her, their whispers growing louder and more mocking. One of them called out, "Hey, why don't you try a trick shot? Maybe that will impress us." Mary looked up briefly, surprised by the challenge. She smiled politely but didn't answer. She didn't come here to show off tricks. Her goal was simple: to shoot well and safely. She took another deep breath, steadied her aim, and fired. The bullet hit closer to the center this time. The sound of the shot was sharp and clean. Some of the people nearby stopped what they were doing to watch her. The leader of the snobby group frowned. His smile faded, replaced by a look of concentration. He stepped forward and said, "All right, if you think you're good, why don't you compete with us? We have a small contest every weekend. You can join, if you dare." Mary considered his offer. She wasn't interested in competition or winning prizes. She shot because she enjoyed it, and because it helped her feel peaceful. But she also knew that accepting the challenge could teach her something. Maybe it would push her to do better. With a calm voice, Mary replied, "Thank you. I'll think about it." The man nodded, almost surprised by her polite answer. He returned to his friends, who began talking about her in quieter voices now. There was less laughter and more curiosity. Some of them looked thoughtful, as if they were starting to see Mary in a different way. Mary continued shooting quietly, ignoring the attention. She carefully changed her targets and adjusted her position. She didn't rush. Each shot was a small test of her focus and control. After a while, the snobby group moved closer to her lane. One of the men, who seemed less aggressive than the others, said, "You know, it's not just about the gun or the tricks. It's about how steady your hand is and how clear your mind is when you shoot." Mary nodded. "Exactly. It's about respect and patience." The man smiled a little. "You seem to have that. Maybe we judged you too quickly." Mary smiled back. "It happens. People often judge what they don't understand." The conversation caught the attention of others at the range. A few people came over and started asking Mary questions about how she learned to shoot, what kind of practice she did, and why she chose to come to the range that day. Mary answered politely, sharing her story about learning from her father and practicing quietly on her own. Some of the snobby shooters listened quietly. Their mocking expressions softened. It was clear they were beginning to respect her for her skills and her calm attitude. As the afternoon went on, the atmosphere at the shooting range changed. The loud jokes and sneers faded. People started to focus more on their own shooting or watch Mary with interest. Mary felt a sense of quiet pride but didn't let it go to her head. She knew that skill wasn't something to brag about, but something to work on every day. By the time Mary finished her practice, the sun was starting to go down. The snobby group approached her one last time before leaving. The leader of the group, who had been the most mocking at first, extended his hand. "You shot really well today," he said sincerely. "Maybe next time, we can all learn a thing or two from you." Mary shook his hand with a smile. "Thank you. That means a lot." As she packed her things and left the range, Mary felt a warm feeling inside. She knew she had proven something not just to others, but to herself. She had stayed calm, focused, and true to what she believed in, even when others doubted her. That day at the shooting range wasn't just about hitting a target. It was about respect, patience, and quiet confidence. And Mary knew she would be back again, ready to shoot with the same calm and steady heart. After that day at the shooting range, Mary couldn't stop thinking about the snobby shooters and their surprise at her skills. For a long time, she had kept her shooting quiet, practicing mostly alone or with her father years ago. But now, she felt something new, confidence mixed with a quiet determination. She wanted to prove to herself that she could do even better, no matter what anyone thought. Mary decided to return to the shooting range more often. Each visit became a chance to practice and grow. She wasn't interested in impressing others, she just wanted to improve her focus, steady her hands, and learn to be patient. Every time she loaded her gun, she reminded herself that every shot was a chance to learn. On her second visit after that first day, the shooting range was even busier. People were talking and moving around more, and Mary noticed some of the snobby shooters were there again. This time, they looked more relaxed, but there was still a bit of curiosity in their eyes. Mary found her usual spot and quietly set up. She felt the familiar calm wash over her as she put on her ear protectors and safety glasses. Her hands moved steadily as she checked her gun and prepared her first target. But just as she was about to take her shot, she heard a voice from behind. "Hey, Mary," it said. She turned to see one of the men from the snobby group, the one who had spoken kindly the last time. He smiled and held out a hand. "I'm Tom. I wanted to say that last time you were here, you showed real skill. Would you like some tips to improve even more?" Mary hesitated for a moment but then nodded. She wasn't opposed to learning from others, as long as it was respectful. "Thank you, Tom. I'd appreciate that." Tom moved to stand beside her and began to share some advice. "You've got a steady hand, but your stance could be better. Try to keep your feet shoulder-width apart and lean slightly forward. It helps with balance and control." Mary listened carefully and adjusted her stance. She felt a small difference right away. Her body felt more stable, and her aim seemed clearer. Tom continued to give her tips on breathing and how to focus on the target without distractions. The other snobby shooters watched quietly, some nodding in agreement with Tom. The mood was different now. Instead of mocking, there was respect in the air. Mary felt comfortable and even a little excited to learn more. As she took her next shots, Mary put Tom's advice to work. Her bullets landed closer to the bullseye. She felt a small thrill of success but stayed calm. Each shot was a lesson, and she knew she had to be patient. After practicing for a while, Mary and Tom talked about their different experiences. Tom had been competing in shooting contests for years. He told stories about the challenges and the importance of focus, just like Mary had mentioned. They found common ground in their love for the sport, even if their styles were different. Other people at the range started joining their conversation. Some asked Mary how she learned to shoot so quietly and steadily. Mary shared her story about her father, how he taught her to respect the gun and to always be calm and careful. The story touched many people. It was clear she wasn't just skilled, but she had a deep respect for shooting as a serious practice. The snobby group that had once laughed at her now looked at her with new eyes. They asked questions, listened carefully, and even asked for her opinion on different shooting techniques. Mary was surprised but happy. She hadn't expected this kind of change so quickly. One of the men, who had been the most sarcastic before, approached Mary and said quietly, "I guess we were wrong about you. You really know your stuff." Mary smiled softly. "We all start somewhere. What matters is how much you want to learn and improve." As the sun began to set, the shooting range grew quieter. Mary packed her things, feeling tired but happy. She had not only practiced her shooting but had also made new friends who respected her. Walking home, Mary thought about how important it was to stay true to herself. She hadn't changed who she was just to please others. Instead, she had stayed calm, worked hard, and let her skills speak for themselves. Mary looked forward to the next visit, ready to learn more and enjoy the quiet moments that shooting gave her. The journey was just beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. Mary had been visiting the shooting range regularly now, and each time she felt a little stronger, a little more confident. She was no longer the quiet woman who people overlooked. Her calm focus and steady hand were beginning to speak louder than any words. One afternoon, the sun was bright, and the air was fresh. The shooting range was lively but not crowded. Mary arrived early, eager to practice and learn more. She noticed the snobby group had arrived too, but today they seemed more relaxed. There was no laughter or teasing this time, only quiet conversations and respectful glances her way. Mary found her usual lane and carefully set up her gear. She was thinking about the lessons Tom had shared with her, the importance of stance, breathing, and focus. Today, she wanted to put all of that together. As she was about to take her first shot, the leader of the snobby group approached. His name was Jack. Mary remembered him from the first day, when he had mocked her the most. But now, his expression was different, more serious, almost respectful. "Mary," Jack said, "we've been talking. We want to invite you to a small shooting competition we have next weekend. It's friendly but serious. We think you belong there." Mary was surprised. She hadn't thought about competing before. She didn't want to be in a contest to prove anything to others. But she also felt a quiet excitement. Maybe this was a chance to test her skills in a new way. She nodded slowly. "Thank you, Jack. I'll think about it." Jack smiled and stepped back, nodding to his friends. Mary felt a little flutter of nerves but also determination. As Mary prepared her target, she heard some quiet whispers nearby. Some people wondered if she could really compete with the others who had more experience and better gear. But Mary didn't care about what others thought. She focused on what she knew: patience, respect, and practice. She took a deep breath and aimed carefully. The first shot hit near the center. She smiled inside. It was good, but she knew she could do better. Mary spent the next hour practicing, each shot better than the last. Her hand was steady, her breathing calm. She felt connected to the moment, to the target, to herself. As she packed up, Jack and Tom came over. "We'll see you next weekend, then?" Tom asked with a friendly smile. Mary nodded. "Yes. I'll be there." The next few days felt long and full of anticipation. Mary thought about the competition and what it might mean. She practiced more at home, going over her stance and breathing techniques. She didn't want to be nervous on the day. When the day of the competition arrived, Mary felt a mix of excitement and calm. The shooting range was filled with people, some serious competitors and some friendly faces. The Snobby group was there, but this time they looked like teammates rather than rivals. Mary stood in her lane, feeling the sun warm her face. She thought about all the times she had practiced alone, all the quiet moments learning from her father and from herself. She felt ready. The competition began. Shooters took turns, aiming at targets from different distances and positions. Mary watched carefully, learning from each round. When it was her turn, she stepped forward. Her heart beat steady. She focused on her breathing, steadied her hands, and aimed. Her first shot hit the center of the target. A small cheer came from some people nearby. Mary felt a quiet smile spread across her face. The competition continued. Mary took each shot with care and calmness. She didn't rush. Her shots were steady and true. As the rounds went on, the Snobby group watched her closely. Their earlier mocking was gone. Instead, there was respect, even admiration. At the end of the competition, the scores were announced. Mary didn't win first place, but she was close. More importantly, she had earned the respect of the other shooters. Jack came over and shook her hand. "You did great, Mary. We're glad you joined us." Mary smiled. "Thank you. It was a good experience." Walking home that evening, Mary felt proud but humble. She had proven something to herself, that with patience and focus, she could face new challenges and succeed. The shooting range was no longer just a quiet place for practice. It had become a place where she could grow, learn, and connect with others who shared her passion. Mary knew her journey was just beginning. There would be more shots to take, more lessons to learn, and more moments to enjoy. And with each shot, she would carry the calm, steady heart that had brought her this far. After the competition, life at the shooting range felt different for Mary. She no longer felt like the quiet, simple woman who was just there to practice alone. Instead, she felt part of a community, a group of people who respected her and shared her love for shooting. The Snobby shooters who once mocked her now looked at her with respect, and some had even become friendly. Mary continued to visit the range regularly. Every time she came, she focused on improving her skills, learning new techniques, and most importantly, staying calm and patient. She still used her old, trusted handgun, not because it was fancy, but because it felt like an extension of herself, a tool she knew well and respected. One day, as she was setting up her equipment, she noticed a young woman watching her from a distance. The woman looked nervous and unsure. Mary remembered how she had felt when she first came to the range, overwhelmed by the noise and the confident shooters. She smiled gently and waved her over. The young woman approached slowly. "Hi, I'm Anna," she said quietly. "I'm new to shooting, and I'm not very good yet. But I want to learn." Mary nodded warmly. "It's nice to meet you, Anna. I was new once too. If you want, I can help you practice." Anna's face brightened. "Really? That would be great." Over the next few weeks, Mary helped Anna learn the basics: how to hold the gun safely, how to breathe properly, how to focus on the target. She reminded Anna to be patient and to respect the gun, just like her father had taught her. Anna listened carefully and practiced hard. Slowly, Anna's confidence grew. Her shots became steadier, and she began to enjoy the quiet focus that shooting required. Mary was proud to see her progress. Helping someone else learn made Mary feel even more connected to the shooting community. Meanwhile, the snobby shooters continued to change. They had started as loud and boastful, but now they were quieter and more respectful. Some of them asked Mary for advice or to join her and Anna for practice. The range was no longer a place of competition and mockery but a place of learning and friendship. One afternoon, after a long practice session, Mary and the group gathered under the shade of a tree near the range. They talked about their experiences, their favorite techniques, and the lessons they had learned. Jack, the leader of the Snobby group, smiled and said, "You know, Mary, you've taught us a lot. Not just about shooting, but about respect and patience." Mary smiled back. "I'm glad. Shooting is more than just hitting targets. It's about the heart you bring to it." As the months passed, Mary's skills grew even stronger. She learned new types of shooting, tried different distances, and even began to compete more regularly. But no matter where she went or what she did, she never lost the calm, steady heart that made her special. One day, at a big competition, Mary faced some of the best shooters in the region. The crowd was large, and the pressure was high. But Mary stayed calm. She focused on each shot, breathing deeply, and remembering all the lessons she had learned. When it was her turn to shoot, she raised her gun slowly, aimed carefully, and fired. The bullet hit the bullseye perfectly. The crowd was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. Mary smiled quietly. She didn't need the applause, but she was happy. She had done her best, stayed true to herself, and shown what patience and respect could achieve. After the competition, Mary walked outside and saw Anna waiting for her. Anna ran up and hugged her. "You were amazing. I want to be like you." Mary laughed softly. "You're already on your way, Anna. Just keep practicing and never give up." As the sun set, Mary looked out over the shooting range. She thought about her journey from the quiet woman who had been mocked and doubted, to the skilled shooter who had earned respect and friendship. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Mary knew that shooting was more than just a sport or a hobby. It was a lesson in patience, focus, and respect. And it was a part of her heart. With a calm smile, Mary packed up her gear and headed home, ready for whatever the future would bring.